The Snowflakes and the Fairies. Once upon a time, in the little town of Snowbell, there lived a small girl named Hilda, known for her spirit and liveliness. It was Christmas Eve, and the whole town was blanketed in a layer of sparkling snow, ready for the festivities. Suddenly, with a jingle of bells, came the snowflakes, looking as dazzling as stars falling from the sky. Their gowns were as white as the purest of pearls and shimmered like diamonds in the moonlight. They danced in circles around the snow-covered town square, and their joyous laughter filled the air. Hilda, filled with excitement, rushed to the square. She touched a snowflake, and it disappeared into a heap of frosty snow, making Hilda laugh with glee. Her heart was filled with Christmas cheer, and she wished for more snowflakes to create a giant snowman, like Santa Claus himself. As she was imagining this, a melody began to play from somewhere beyond the trees. Suddenly, the snowflakes scattered, hiding in the corners of the square. From the shadows emerged the Christmas fairies, dressed in gowns of pale green cheesecloths that rustled softly in the winter breeze. They had gauze wings that shimmered in the moonlight, and on their heads, they wore crowns of evergreen. They danced in the square, their feet barely touching the ground, singing a sweet song of Christmas joy and peace. Hilda couldn't believe her eyes. She had heard stories of fairies, but seeing them was another joy altogether. They were so graceful, so beautiful, she thought. The sight of the fairies dancing and singing made her forget everything else. In a joyous celebration, the snowflakes and the fairies danced around Hilda, who clapped and laughed with pure delight. Their song of peace, goodwill, and joy filled the air, and Hilda felt a warmth spread through her heart, despite the cold weather. The fairies then offered Hilda a vision of Santa Claus, fulfilling her lifelong dream. They sang another beautiful song, filling the night with Christmas cheer. Their song spoke of the Christmas bells ringing across the snow-filled town, the joy and love they brought to everyone, and the hope for a peaceful and joyous year ahead. As the song came to an end, Hilda was filled with so much happiness that she could hardly stand. Her eyelids grew heavy, and she fell asleep in the middle of the square, a smile still on her face. As she drifted off to sleep, the fairies gently came forward and sprinkled fairy dust over her. The snowflakes, meanwhile, formed a protective circle around her. Together, they created a beautiful tableau around the sleeping child, protecting her from the cold winter night. In her dreams, Hilda saw Santa Claus, just as jolly and kind as she had always imagined. He showered her with gifts, making her dream the happiest one she had ever had. And so, Hilda's Christmas Eve was filled with magic, joy, and a sense of wonder that she would remember for the rest of her life. As the story goes, every year on Christmas Eve, the snowflakes and fairies would visit Hilda, bringing with them the same joy and magic, making every Christmas special for the little girl with a spirit and a heart full of dreams. The Snowman was a cold. Once upon a time, in a land covered in snow, there was a snowman named Frosty. He loved nothing more than playing in the snow and rolling around in the cold weather. One day, while Frosty was out playing in the snow, he caught a cold. He started sneezing and his nose turned a bright red color. The people who lived in the land of snow saw that Frosty was not feeling well, and they wanted to help him. They decided to bring him inside their warm houses, thinking that would make him feel better. But when Frosty was brought inside, he started to melt. The heat from the houses was too much for him, and he was quickly turning into a puddle of water. So they quickly carried him outside again. The people were very worried about Frosty. They didn't know what to do to help him. But then, one little girl had an idea. They went to Frosty and put a hat and a scarf on him. The hat and scarf kept Frosty warm, and he didn't melt anymore. Frosty was so happy and grateful to the people for helping him. And even though most snowmen don't catch colds because they are made of snow, the people have kept putting hats and scarves on snowmen ever since, as a way to remember Frosty and how they helped him when he was sick. And that, dear children, is the story of the first snowman ever that caught a cold, Frosty, and how the people kindly helped him. The Snowman and the Boy. Once upon a time there was a man who was made of snow. He had sticks for his arms and stones for his eyes. His nose was made of an icicle, and his mouth was a bit of bent twig, which turned up at the ends, so he looked as if he were smiling. "He's the finest snowman we've ever seen," said the children who made him, and they joined hands and danced around him until their mother called them in for dinner. "Goodbye," they called to him as they climbed the fence that divided the field from the yard. "Goodbye. We will bring you a hat tomorrow." There were a half-dozen of the children, and the youngest of them was a little boy who had never helped to make a snowman before. He thought of this one all the time he was eating his dinner, and even after he had gone to bed that night. He knew just how the snowman looked with his smiling mouth and stick arms. "I wish we had taken him a hat tonight," he thought, as his eyelids dropped down like two little curtains over his eyes. "Arcoo! Arcoo! I wish that you had," said something outside the window. And do you believe it? It was a snowman sneezing as hard as he could. "This is what comes of standing out in the cold bareheaded," he said. "I shall sneeze my head off, I know I shall. Arcoo! Arcoo! Arcoo!" "Dear me," said the little boy, "I will get you a hat, but it will have to be my sailor, for I wear my new hat to parties, and my everyday cap will not fit you. I am afraid we made your head so large." "The sailor will do nicely," said the snowman, "if I may have it at once. As it is, I am catching a cold. Arcoo! Arcoo! Arcoo!" When the little boy heard this, he jumped out of bed and ran to the cupboard and got the sailor hat from the top shelf and gave it to the snowman. "How do I look in it?" he asked as soon as he had put it on. "Well enough," answered the moon, who had been watching all the while. "But you will have to make haste if you want to go anywhere before daylight." "Don't you hear what the moon is saying?" said the snowman to the little boy. "What are you waiting for? Am I going anywhere?" asked the child. "Of course," answered the snowman. "Why shouldn't you go?" The little boy could not think of an answer to this, and the next thing he knew he was out of the window with the snowman. "Where are we going?" asked he. "Why," said the snowman, hurrying away into the street, "I have never thought of that. But since you speak of it, I think we had better go to the Winter King's palace and ask him if he cannot do something to keep the sun from shining tomorrow." "Oh," said the little boy, for his mother had promised that he might go to his grandmother's if the day was fine. He had no time to say anything about this, however, for just then the snowman cried out, "I have dropped one of my eyes, and I cannot go on without it." Dear me, said the little boy. "How shall we ever find it?" But while he was talking, a little dog that he knew very well came by. His name was Fido, and he could find anything that was lost. He had found the little ball when it rolled under the house, and his master's shoes when everybody else had failed. And when he heard of the lost eye, he started back at once to look for it. "Don't worry," said the little boy. "Fido will find it." And sure enough, in the twinkle of a star, he was back with a stone in his mouth. The little boy put it in its place as quickly as he could, for the snowman seemed to be in a hurry. "Didn't you see that we were at a baker's shop?" he said. "I know I must have been near the oven too, for one of my ears is almost melted off." "Why, you haven't any ears," said the little boy. "We did not know how to make them." "No ears," cried the snowman. "Then how do I hear what you say? But there now, you are only a little boy, and cannot know everything. Besides, here we are at the palace, and you must be quiet." The little boy had thought he was passing the building where his big brothers and sisters went to school, but when he went inside he saw that he was wrong, and the snowman was right, for in the place where the teacher's desk should have been, was a throne, and on the throne sat the Winter King with icicles in his beard. As soon as he saw the snowman and the little boy, he began to talk very fast. "What has this little boy been doing? Why isn't he in bed? Come here, Jack Frost, and tickle his toes." "Oh, no," cried the snowman. "He has done nothing wrong. He is one of my best friends, and I have brought him here with me to ask you not to let the sun shine tomorrow. I don't want to melt." "Ah, ha," said the king. "I don't know about that. You will have to melt sometime, won't you?" "Of course," said the snowman, "but I'd like to last as long as I can." It made the little boy very sad to hear him talk in this way. He thought he would rather not go to his grandmother's than to risk the snowman in the sun. "We are very fond of him," he said to the king. "He's the finest snowman we've ever seen, and he looks just as if he were smiling." "So he does," said the king, looking at the snowman again. "And since you ask it, I will tell you what I will do. I cannot keep the sun from shining, but I will ask the north wind to freeze the snowman, and perhaps he will last anyhow." When the snowman heard this, he began to dance. And as a little boy had hold of one of his thick arms, he had to dance too. Together they danced out of the Winter King's palace, down the streets, into the field, where they found the north wind waiting for them. The first thing he did was to blow the hat from the snowman's head. "Arcoo! Arcoo!" sneezed the snowman. "I know I shall catch cold." "And Arcoo!" sneezed the little boy, and he sneezed so loud that he waked himself up. For do you believe it? He had been asleep and dreaming all the time. One part of his dream came true though, for when he looked out of the window, the next morning, there stood the snowman in the field frozen hard. Snowflakes. Once upon a time, a little raindrop thought it had played long enough up in the clouds, and said it would go down to the earth and see what good it could do. So it started. While it was falling, it had to pass through a cloud that was very cold. And this funny little raindrop, instead of shrinking together as we do when we are cold, stretched out and stretched out till it was not round anymore, but was long and thin and hard like a needle. And that is just what it was. As it went on falling, it met another just like itself. The second one said, "Little ice needle, where are you going?" "Down to the earth to see what good I can do." "I'll go too." So the second ice needle joined the first, and they fell together. Pretty soon they met a third, and it said, "Little ice needles, where are you going?" "Down to the earth to see what good we can do." "Then I'll go too." So it joined the others and they fell together. Then they met another and another and another, who all joined them. Then there were 6 little ice needles falling together, and they had a new name, Snowflake. Little Snowflake met others who asked it where it was going. "Down to the ground to see what good I can do." "We'll go too." "But where shall we go?" "I know," said one of the little ice needles. "Last summer, when I was warm and round, I saw a place where a poor little sick boy had planted some seeds which a kind lady gave him. And I think it would be so nice to fall on that place and keep it warm, so that the seeds in the ground may not freeze, and the little boy may have some." "So we will," said they all, and they fell faster and faster that they might get there sooner. Other snowflakes saw them and went too, and the ground was covered more and more thickly with snow till there was enough to keep the seeds from freezing all winter. When the weather began to be warmer, the snow turned into water and ran down into the earth, and the seeds drank it and swelled until, by and by, little leaves came out above ground from each seed. Then other leaves grew, and when summer came, little Frank had his flowers again, and all because one little raindrop wanted to do some good in the world. A visit to Santa Claus. Once upon a time, in a small town far away, there lived 2 very curious children, Jack and Nell. As winter arrived and Christmas neared, their minds danced with the dream of visiting Santa home and understanding how he managed to create gifts for all the children around the world. So, they embarked on a daring journey, surviving near frostbites, sea storms, and snowdrifts to reach the North Pole. Finally, after what felt like ages, they found themselves standing before Santa's snowy abode. "Hello there! You are a long way from home," chuckled Santa Claus, his round belly shaking like a bowl full of jelly. "We wanted to visit you and see where you make all the presents," Jack replied. Even though they had faced numerous trials on their journey, the sight of Santa home and the magic within filled them with joy and warmth. Santa, ever jovial and good-humored, welcomed them in, explaining how being Santa Claus wasn't just fun and games. Around them, the house was filled with all sorts of wonders. There were doll dresses being sewn, tin horns being defrosted, and dancing teddy bears being built. Santa was busily solving problems and making sure everything was perfect for the upcoming Christmas. To the children's amazement, they found that even the North Pole had its challenges. Santa Reindeer Prancer had been hurt, and Santa Pet Seals had accidentally gotten loose and started eating the wooden animals for Noah's Ark playsets. Through all the chaos and comedy, Santa Claus remained undaunted and cheerfully tackled every problem. Mrs. Claus, a splendid seamstress and an excellent problem solver herself, helped wherever she could. Jack and Nell quickly realized being Santa Claus was not an easy task at all. There was so much to do and so many problems to solve. They learned that behind all the magic and joy that Santa brought, there was a lot of hard work and commitment. Seeing Santa juggling all his responsibilities, they expressed their concerns. "I should think you'd get nervous prostration," Jack worriedly stated. Santa just chuckled and replied, "Oh, I can't get thin. People like a fat Santa Claus best." His optimistic spirit was unwavering despite the mayhem around him. At the end of their visit, Jack and Nell had a newfound respect for Santa. They returned home, their hearts filled with the spirit of Christmas, understanding the true joy lies in giving, and that every bit of effort counts in making someone's day brighter. And as for Santa Claus, he continued to spread joy, working tirelessly till Christmas Eve, ensuring that every child around the world received their cherished presents. Through all the chaos and hard work, he kept smiling, his heart full of love for children everywhere. From then on, whenever Jack and Nell saw a beautifully wrapped Christmas present, they remembered their adventure to Santa home and the loving, tireless work that went into each gift. And as they closed their eyes each Christmas Eve, they could almost hear Santa's hearty laugh echoing from the North Pole. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Firefighter ABC. A is for aid, which they provide. In times of peril, they are at our side. B is for bravery, showing no fright, as they battle the blaze in all its might. C is for captain who leads a crew. Together they get each other through. D is for drills, we practice day and night, to be ready to rescue, and do it right. E is for evacuation, a word of safety and care. When there's a fire, we must leave at once. Be sure you're aware. F is for firemen, rushing to extinguish the fire until they are ready to retire. G is for gear, so bright and clean, helps keep the firefighter safe and seen. H is for hose, shooting water high and low, extinguishing fires, making them slow. I is for inspector, checking buildings each day to make sure all fire hazards stay away. J is for jacket, worn white or bright red, to keep firefighters safe, as into a blaze they tread. K is for knowledge, which is power indeed. Knowing what to do in an emergency is a great need. L is for ladder, long and lean, to reach high windows, where flames are seen. M is for megaphone, to shout out loud and clear, guiding all the people to safe. N is for navigate, through smoke that's thick. In a fiery home, we need to be quick. O is for oxygen, helping them breathe in smoky fires and beneath. P is for pole, where they slide down in a hurry to rush to the site. There's really no worry. Q is for quick, a firefighter's pace, rushing to help. They win every race. R is for rescue, a task quite strong. Firefighters do it all day long. S is for station, where they stay on deck, ready to leave at the first sound check. T is for truck, big and red, as it races ahead to where it is led. U is for uniform, it's bright and neat. A firefighter always wears it when there's heat. V is for vigilant, firefighters always strive to keep us all safe and help everyone thrive. W is for water, so cool and neat. Firefighters use it to defeat the heat. X is for extinguish, as firefighters do. Fighting was their hose, until the last flame is through. Y is for yes, when help is required. Firefighters are ready, never too tired. Z is for zipper on their suit, keeps them safe from the soot. The visit to Santa Claus Land. One night just before Christmas, Kate and Brian were put to bed by their mother, but they couldn't sleep and they were upright in bed. Brian, whispered Kate, "Are you sleeping?" "No," said Brian. "I can't sleep." "Kate, would you also want to see Santa Claus?" "Huh, Kate, do you hear that?" They both held their breaths and heard soft knocking on their window. And when they looked, they saw a jolly Christmas elf sitting by the window. "Did I hear you correctly? You want to see Santa Claus?" said the elf. "Well, you're in luck, because I am one of his elves and I am going to Santa Claus Land. If you want, I can take you with me." Brian and Kate jumped out of bed and yelled, "Yes, show us the way, show us the way." "Hold on," said the elf. "Nobody is allowed to know the way to Santa Claus Land." The elf took something soft and dark and covered Brian's eyes. Then he took something soft and dark and put it over Kate's eyes. "How many fingers do you see?" he asked. But Brian and Kate had no idea, because they couldn't see a thing. "Very well, we are ready for departure," said the elf. He took Brian's hand with his one hand and Kate's hand with his other and they flew out of the window. They flew for a while until the elf started spinning so much that they got dizzy. The children had no idea which way they were going and after a while they stopped. "We have arrived," said the elf and removed the blinds from their eyes. And what they saw was a giant, thick gate. The elf knocked on the door and the gate opened. Together they walked in, just like that, into the garden of Santa. It was a remarkable garden. There were many rows of Christmas trees, all shining with decorations, and instead of flowers, there grew toys in the garden. Kate immediately ran to the dolls. "Let's see if one is ripe," said the elf. "Ripe?" asked Kate. "Yes, of course," said the elf. "When the doll is ripe, she will close her eyes in your arms. Let's try this one." The elf put a doll in her arms and the doll closed its eyes halfway. "No, this one isn't ripe yet," said the Christmas elf. "Try this one." He put the doll in Kate's arms and the doll directly closed its eyes. "We'll take it," decided the elf and put the doll in a big bag that he was carrying with him. They walked further and saw baby dolls. "These are ripe when they start crying," said the elf. He softly pinched the doll and it made a funny, squeaking sound. "Not ripe yet," he decided and put the doll back. He tried a few more and took quite a few. Some cried, others said mommy or daddy, and others danced when they were wound up. "Oh, look, Kate!" yelled Brian. Kate ran to Brian and saw drum sets in all colors of the rainbow. "Can we take a couple of these?" asked Brian. "Of course, but let's see if they're ripe," said the elf. He took a small red drum and gave it a clap with a stick. The drum made a weird noise that made them all laugh, so they put it back. The Christmas elf chose a big, brown drum and hit it, and it made a mighty sound, so they took it. When they plucked all the drum sets, they walked towards the horns. Those were the best. Next they walked to the wind-up toys. There were trains, cars, dancing dolls, climbing monkeys, hopping birds, swaying ducks, and any other kind of toy you can think of. The kids stayed there for a long time, until Kate said, "Where is Santa Claus? We want to meet him." "Of course," said the elf. "Come along." And he led the children over a long, winding road to the edge of the garden and pointed to a hill in the distance. "Do you see that big white house? That's where he lives." The kids stared at the house. It was so white that it seemed to shine. "Walk past here," said the elf, "and then up the hill towards the house of Santa." "Oh, we have to pass this," said Kate, and she stared into a deep, black abyss between the garden and the hill. There was a plank to cross it. "Be careful," advised the Christmas elf, "and don't look down. If you do, I'm afraid you won't see Santa tonight." "We will be careful," said Brian. "Come along, Kate." And he took his sister's hand and they started to walk over the plank. They were almost halfway when Brian looked down. "Oh," he said and pulled Kate's hand. She also looked down and yelled, "Oh, oh," and together they fell down and crashed. Suddenly they were upright in their beds and rubbed their eyes. They were at home in their own beds. Mother opened the door and said, "Are you awake, kids?" "Oh, Mother, we didn't sleep. We were visiting Santa Claus Land and we almost saw him." They told their mother everything that morning. And Mother, she smiled. Santa Claus and the Mouse. Once upon a Christmas Eve, Santa Claus made a stop at a certain house to fill the children's stockings. As he was doing so, he was surprised to find a little mouse awake and watching him. Santa greeted the mouse warmly and said, "A Merry Christmas, little friend." The mouse replied, "The same to you, sir." Santa, finding the mouse's presence amusing, said, "You're very welcome to stay and watch." As Santa filled the stockings with toys, he proudly declared that they wouldn't be able to hold anything more. But the mouse had other ideas. With a twinkle in his eye, he politely suggested that there was one more thing he could fit into the stockings. Santa, thinking the mouse was joking, laughed and said, "Don't. I know how to pack. By filling stockings all these years, I should have learned the knack." Santa then offered the mouse a challenge and gave him permission to try and fit one more thing into the stocking. The mouse, with a chuckle, stole over to the stocking and gnawed a small hole at the toe of the stocking. He then looked up at Santa and said, "Now, if you please, good Santa Claus, I've put in one thing more, for you will own that little hole was not in there before." Santa couldn't help but laugh at the mouse's clever joke and promised him a Christmas cheese for his clever trick. And if anyone ever doubted the truth of this story, Santa could show them the very stocking was the hole that the little mouse had gnawed through. The 12 Days of Christmas. The first day of Christmas, my true love sent to me partridge in the pear tree. The second day of Christmas, my true love sent to meadow turtle doves and a partridge in the pear tree. The third day of Christmas, my true love sent to nursery French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in the pear tree. The fourth day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in the pear tree. The fifth day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. The 6th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 6 geese a-laying, 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. The 7th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. The 8th day of Christmas, my true love sent to meet maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. The 9th day of Christmas, my true love sent to many drummers drumming, 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. The 10th day of Christmas, my true love sent to meet pipers piping, 9 drummers drumming, 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge. The 11th day of Christmas, me true love sent to me 11 ladies dancing, 10 pipers piping, 9 drummers drumming, 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge. The 12th day of Christmas, me true love sent to met 12 lords a-leaping, 11 ladies dancing, 10 pipers piping, 9 drummers drumming, 8 maids a-milking, 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 gold rings, 4 collie birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. The Fairy Tulips. Once upon a time, in a cozy little village near Dartmoor, there lived an elderly woman who owned a charming cottage and a lovely garden. In this garden, she tended to a bed of exquisite tulips that were said to have a magical secret. The village was also home to a group of playful pixies, who loved the tulip bed so much that they would bring their tiny babies there to sing them to sleep. At night, the garden would come alive with the soothing melodies of their lullabies, and it was believed that the tulips themselves hummed along, swaying in time with the music. Once the pixie babies drifted to sleep, the pixies would head to a nearby field to dance and play, leaving behind circles on the grass as evidence of their nighttime frolics. Each morning, as the sun began to rise, the pixies would return to the tulips to care for their little ones, showering them with kisses and gentle touches. Thanks to the pixies' tender care, the tulips in the elderly woman's garden stayed vibrant and fragrant longer than any other flowers in the village. The old woman cherished her tulips and never allowed a single one to be picked. But eventually, she passed away, and her garden fell into the hands of someone who did not appreciate the beauty of the tulips. The new owner replaced the tulips with a parsley bed, which deeply saddened and offended the pixies. In their disappointment, they caused the parsley to wither, and for many years, nothing would grow in that garden. However, The pixies never forgot the kind old woman who had cared for their beloved tulips. They sang sweet songs around her grave and made sure it remained a beautiful, lush space, filled with the prettiest flowers that grew without any, and so it stayed, a testament to the bond between the old woman and the magical pixies who loved her tulip garden. The Moonlit Lullaby. Once upon a time, on a beautiful night, the earth was softly sleeping under the moon's gentle light. High up in a tree, there was a cozy little nest where a baby bird was tucked in tight. As a whippoorwill sang a faint, soothing note, everything around became quiet and still. The baby bird closed its eyes, listening to the peaceful night. "Sleep well, little one," whispered the wind. "I'll sing you a lullaby to help you dream tonight." While the baby bird slept, a gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of flowers, filling the air with lovely dreams. The great moon above spread its wings, casting a warm glow over the slumbering world. The wind sang softly all night long, helping the baby bird to rest, safe and sound in its nest. The earth and air joined together, like loving parents, keeping watch over their tiny friend. Even the stars in the sky gathered close, as if to say, "We'll protect you, little one, until the break of day." And as the baby bird slept, a great wing from far away came to fan its dreams, keeping it safe until the morning sun appeared. The Little Engine That Could. In a certain railroad yard there stood an extremely heavy train that had to be drawn up an unusually heavy grade before it could reach its destination. The superintendent of the yard was not sure what it was best for him to do, so he went up to a large, strong engine and asked, "Can you pull that train over the hill? It is a very heavy train." He then went to another great engine and asked, "Can you pull that train over the hill? It is a very heavy grade," it replied. The superintendent was much puzzled, but he turned to still another engine that was spick and span new, and he asked it, "Can you pull that train over the hill?" "I think I can." So the order was circulated, and the engine was started back so that it might be coupled with the train. And as it went along the rails it kept repeating to itself, "I think I can. I think I can. I think I can." The coupling was made and the engine began its journey, and all along the level, as it rode toward the ascent, it kept repeating to itself, "I think I can. I think I can. I think I can." Then it reached the grade, but its voice could still be heard. "I think I can. I think I can. I think I can." Higher and higher it climbed, and its voice grew fainter and its words came slower. "I think I can." It was almost to the top. I think it was at the top. "I can." It passed over the top of the hill and began crawling down the opposite slope. "I think I can. I thought I could. I thought I could. I thought I could. I thought I could. I thought I could." And singing its triumph, it rushed on down toward the valley. The Little Thief in the Pantry. "Mother dear," said a little mouse one day, "I think the people in our house must be very kind, don't you? They leave such nice things for us in the pantry." There was a twinkle in the mother's eye as she replied, "Well, my child, no doubt they are very well in their way, but I don't think they are quite as fond of us as you seem to think. Now remember, Gray Whiskers, I have absolutely forbidden you to put your nose above the ground unless I am with you, for kind as the people are. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they tried to catch you. Gray Whiskers twitched his tail with scorn. He was quite sure he knew how to take care of himself, and he didn't want to walk after his mother's tail all his life. So as soon as she had curled herself up for an afternoon nap, he crept away and scampered across the pantry shelves. Ah, there was something particularly good today. A large iced cake stood far back on the shelf, and Gray Whiskers licked his lips as he sniffed it. Across the top of the cake there were words written in pink sugar, but as Gray Whiskers could not read, he did not know that he was nibbling at little Issel's birthday cake. But he did feel a little guilty when he heard his mother calling. Off he ran, and was back in the nest again by the time his mother had finished rubbing her eyes after her nap. She took Gray Whiskers up to the pantry then, and when she saw the hole in the cake she seemed a little annoyed. Some mouse has evidently been here before us, she said, but of course she never guessed that it was her own little son. The next day the naughty little mouse again popped up to the pantry when his mother was asleep, but at first he could find nothing at all to eat, though there was a most delicious smell of toasted cheese. But then he found a little wooden house, and there hung the cheese, just inside it. Gray Whiskers ran in, but oh, click went the little wooden house, and the little mouse was caught fast in a trap. When the morning came, the cook, who had set the trap, lifted it from the shelf, and then called a little girl to come and see the thief who had eaten her cake. "What are you going to do with him?" asked Ethel. "Drown him." Tears came into the little girl's pretty blue eyes. "You didn't know it was stealing, did you, Mousie dear?" she said. "No," squeaked Gray Whiskers sadly. "Indeed I didn't." Cook's back was turned for a moment, and in that moment tender-hearted little Ethel lifted the lid of the trap, and out popped the little mouse. Oh, how quickly he ran home to his mother, and how she comforted and petted him until he began to forget his fright. And then she made him promise never to disobey her again. And you may be sure Maya the Bee and the Dragonfly. With high spirits and a lot of enthusiasm for a new adventure, Maya flew over the green meadows. On the way, she had already encountered many other insects who often greeted her cheerfully. She loved enjoying her freedom, but sometimes she also felt a little guilty, knowing that her bee colony accomplished their busy work every day. Maya the beach and the Libelly at the edge of a pond. Maya landed to rest under the leaf of a water lily. She was just smoothing her wings when a blue fly landed on the leaf next to her. "What are you doing on my leaf?" asked the blue fly grumpily. Maya was taken aback and shouted in a louder tone than she had intended. "Is it so bad if I rest here for a while?" Miss Cassandra had told her that bees were seen as important in the insect world and were treated accordingly. Now she could see if that was indeed true. The blue fly did indeed seem uncomfortable. She could see that clearly. He hopped from his leaf to one above Maya and said, "You should be working. As a bee, you should certainly be doing that. But if you want to rest, that's fine. I'll wait here for a while. There are plenty of leaves, aren't there?" Maya remarked. They're all rented out, said the blue fly. These days, you're happy to be able to call a piece of ground your own. If my predecessor hadn't been eaten by a frog 2 days ago, I still wouldn't have a decent place to live. It's really not pleasant to have to look for a new place to stay every night. Not everyone has such an organized life as you bees. But let me introduce myself. My name is Jack Christopher. Maya fell silent and thought about how terrible it must be to fall into the claws of a frog. Maya the beach, are there many frogs in the lake? She asked, moving towards the middle of the leaf to avoid being seen from the water. The blue fly laughed. The frog can see you from underneath when the sun shines, because then the leaf is transparent. He can see you perfectly sitting on my leaf. Suddenly, Maya didn't feel very comfortable on the leaf. She was about to fly away when Jack Christopher was picked up by a large, sparkling dragonfly. Without thinking, she shouted, "Let the blue fly go immediately. You have no right to want to eat someone at random." The dragonfly turned to Maya. She was startled by her large size and shook like a reed. "Why not? What's going on, child?" asked the dragonfly in a surprisingly friendly tone. "Please let him go," Maya cried, tears welling up in her eyes. "His name is Jack Christopher." The dragonfly smiled. "Why, little one?" Maya stammered helplessly. "Oh, he's such a nice, charming gentleman, and he's never done you any harm, as far as I know." The dragonfly looked thoughtfully at Jack Christopher. "Yes, he's a sweet little guy," answered the dragonfly and snap. Jack Christopher went down her throat. For a moment, Maya didn't know what to say. She listened in horror as the dragonfly nibbled and gnawed. She looked at the dragonfly, stunned. "Don't be so sensitive," said the dragonfly. "Your sensitivity doesn't impress me. You bees aren't any better. What are you doing here? Apparently, you're still very young and don't know much about life. Everyone here in nature has their own place and their own task. You probably have a lot to learn. So stop lecturing me. Don't you dare take a step closer," Maya shouted, "because if you do, I'll use my stinger on you." The dragonfly gave her a stern look and spoke slowly and menacingly. "Dragonflies and bees get along well and don't threaten each other. Maya the beach tick and film well. That seems very wise," said Maya. The dragonfly prepared to fly away, spreading her crystal wings to fly over the lake. The sunlight on the water created a glimmer on her wings, and it was such a beautiful sight that Maya momentarily forgot her friend Jack Christopher in her fear. "How beautiful!" she exclaimed. "Do you mean me?" the dragonfly asked, surprised, but quickly added, "Yes, I know I look fantastic. Recently, I was spotted by people on the riverbank, and they talked about my beautiful appearance." "People?" Maya exclaimed, because she was very curious about humans. "Have you seen people?" "Of course," said the dragonfly. "But you're probably more interested in my name. I'm called Love Deer." "Oh, tell me more about people instead," Maya interrupted the dragonfly. "Do humans have stingers too?" "Oh no, definitely not," replied the dragonfly, settling on the leaf beside Maya. "No, humans have worse weapons against us. They're very dangerous. There's not a soul who isn't afraid of them." "Do they try to catch you?" asked Maya excitedly. "Yes. Don't you understand why?" Miss Lovedeer glanced at her wings. "I've rarely met a human who hasn't tried to catch me. But why? Asked Maya, trembling. Well, you see, said Miss Lovedear with a modest grin and a sidelong glance. There's something attractive about us dragonflies. That's the only reason I know. To eat you? Asked Maya. No, I don't think so, said the dragonfly. As far as I know, humans don't eat dragonflies. It's more of a sport. Humans are bloodthirsty. They do it for fun. But I can see from your face that you don't believe me. Of course I doubt it, Maya exclaimed indignantly. Miss Lovedear shrugged her glittering shoulders. I'll tell you a terrible story. My brother had a promising future ahead of him. But one day he was caught by a child. He was put in a jar with the lid on. My poor brother soon ran out of air and died. That's such a terrible way to die, don't you think? A tear rolled down the dragonfly's cheek. I think about him every day. Terrible, whispered Maya, feeling miserable from the sad story. Have you ever had sadness in your life? Asked the dragonfly. No, said Maya. Actually, I've always been happy until now. Then you should be grateful to heaven, said Miss Lovedear. But now I must go. If you want, I'll tell you more another time. Goodbye, Maya. And then she flew away. Maya heard her singing a song. Then Maya thought it was time to fly away herself and lifted her own wings to continue on her own path. Maya the Bee in the House of the Rose. The sun had been shining for quite some time when Maya woke up in the flower where she had fallen asleep the night before. The petals swayed gently in the light breeze. It's like they're dancing, exclaimed Maya, still excited from all the adventures she had experienced the day before. I definitely won't go back to the beehive. And when she thought of Miss Cassandra, her heart beat faster. How clearly she had shown how terrible it is to have to fly in and out of the hive forever to collect and carry honey. No, that was certainly not a life for Maya. She wanted to enjoy her freedom, no matter what. Meanwhile, her stomach started to growl a little. It was time to eat something. In the distance, she saw a beautiful red flower. She flew towards it, and in doing so, she caused a large drop of water to fall from the leaf, splashing onto the ground in dozens of glistening water droplets. What a beautiful sight it was! Maya the Beach, the red flower, spread a delicious, sweet smell. At the lower edge of the flower, at the entrance to the cup, was a beetle. He was slightly smaller than herself and had brown wings and a black chest. He looked at Maya seriously and undisturbed. Maya greeted the beetle with a friendly greeting. "What are you doing here?" asked the beetle. "What kind of beautiful flower is this?" asked Maya, not answering the beetle's question. "Would you be so kind as to tell me the name of this flower?" The beetle laughed, which bees wouldn't find very polite if there was a serious question asked. "You must be new here," said the beetle. And he meant that he understood that she was just born and couldn't know much yet. "It's a rose," said the beetle. "Now you know." Although the beetle didn't have the best manners according to Maya, she thought he was a good-natured man. "We moved here 4 days ago," said the beetle. "Do you want to come in and take a look?" Maya hesitated but overcame her doubts and took a few steps forward. The beetle pushed a clear petal aside to let Maya in. They walked together through the narrow rooms with their muted light and fragrant walls. "What an enchanting house!" exclaimed Maya. "And it smells so heavenly in here." The beetle was pleased with Maya's admiration. Knowing where to live takes wisdom, he said, smiling kindly. Tell me where you live, and I'll tell you what you're worth, says an old saying. Would you like some nectar? Well, yes please, exclaimed Maya, realizing how hungry she was by now. The beetle left Maya alone for a moment to get the nectar. Maya pressed her nose into the red petal to take in the scent completely. Life is so wonderful here, she said. It's so much better to be here than in the hustle and bustle of the bees who only fly back and forth and worry about collecting honey. The silence is delightful. Suddenly, there was a loud noise behind the walls. It was a beetle growling excitedly in great anger. It seemed like he was pushing someone roughly. A moment later, she heard the sound of someone running outside. The beetle returned and grumpily threw some nectar down. It's a shame, he said. You can't escape those pests anywhere. They don't give you a moment of peace. Maya was so hungry that she took some of the nectar without thanking the beetle. Who was that? Mumbled Maya with her mouth still full. It was an ant. He burst out angrily. They have it in their heads to go straight into the pantry without a thank you. They take without asking. It makes me furious. If I didn't realize that these ill-mannered creatures actually don't know any better, I wouldn't hesitate for a moment to call them thieves. At this point, he suddenly remembered his own manners. Sorry, he said, turning to Maya. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Peter, of the rose beetle family. My name is Maya, said the little bee shyly. I'm delighted to meet you. She looked at Peter attentively. He bowed repeatedly and spread his antennae out like two small brown fans. Maya thought it was beautiful. You have the most fascinating antennae, she said. Thank you, Peter said flattered. Would you like to see the other side? Yes, please, replied Maya. Verho Maya the bed rose beetle turned his fan-shaped antennae aside and let a ray of sunshine glide over them. Great, isn't it? He asked. I think it's very special, Maya exclaimed. Mine aren't as remarkably beautiful. Oh, said Peter. Everyone has their own special characteristics. For example, you have very beautiful eyes, and the golden color of your body is very attractive, Maya beamed. Peter was the first to tell her that she looked good. Life was wonderful. She took some more nectar. Excellent quality honey, she noted. Take some more, said Peter, rather surprised by his little guest's appetite. There's also some dew if you're thirsty. Thank you very much, said Maya. But now I have to fly again, if that's okay with you. The rose beetle laughed. Fly, always flying, he said. It's in the blood of you bees. I don't understand such a restless way of life. It also has an advantage to stay in one place, don't you think? Peter held the red curtain aside politely. I'll come with you to our observation leaf, he said. It's an excellent place to fly from. Oh, thank you, said Maya. But I can fly from anywhere. That's an advantage over me, Peter replied. I have some trouble unfolding my hind wings. He shook her hand and held the last curtain aside for her. Oh, the blue sky, Maya exclaimed. Goodbye, goodbye, Peter called out, staying on the top petal to see Maya rise up in the golden sunlight and the clear, pure morning air. With a sigh, he returned to his cool rose home and sang a morning song for himself. the bee learns to fly. Maya is a small, cheerful and headstrong bee who is very curious. She experiences many adventures, and that starts right from her birth. Maya the bee is born as the last bee in a large beehive near an abandoned ruin in the forest. She has many brothers and sisters. Miss Cassandra is a smart beekeeper who helps with the birth of the many new bees. It immediately becomes clear that Maya is a terribly curious little bee. The first thing she asks Miss Cassandra at her birth is, "Why did you name me Maya?" To which Cassandra replies, "For no reason. Everyone just needs a name." On the day Maya is born, half of the bees in the beehive are supposed to swarm out. Otherwise, there won't be enough space for all the bees. Maya learns a lot from Miss Cassandra on the first day of her life. She meets Willie, a bee who is very sweet, but not so smart. He is in the class for the second time. "We bees are hard workers," Miss Cassandra explains. "We collect honey every day, so it's good to know which flowers are most suitable for that. I will teach you everything, and it's important that you know who your enemies are. Take the hornet, for example. That's our biggest enemy." The next day when Maya wakes up, panic breaks out in the hive. Too many bees have stayed in the hive, and the commotion causes the hive to become too warm and the honey to melt. This is, of course, a big disaster for the new eggs laid by the queen. The heat from the hive can only be cooled by the up and down movement of the wings of all the bees. Maya also does her best and notices that by moving her wings up and down, she is getting higher and higher in the air. It looks like flying, but she only gets her first flying lesson that afternoon. She tells the whole beehive excitedly that she's going to learn how to fly, and Miss Cassandra is going to teach her. Then it's time for Maya to learn to fly on her own, and she loves it. She collects honey and meets Flip the grasshopper. Flip can't stand still and has to jump around all the time. That's just what grasshoppers do, he explains to Maya. He promises to help her if she gets into trouble. And that's definitely going to happen, because you're so headstrong, he adds. As Maya flies around from poppy to tulip, she realizes that it's much more fun to be outside and decides that she won't go back to the hive. "Why should I go back?" she asks herself. "I don't find it at all pleasant there, and I don't see the point of all that hard work. I'll stay outside and have fun." It gets late and dark. There's a beautiful flower where I'm going to sleep tonight. Flying around has made her so tired that she falls asleep right away and sleeps like a log. The apple roasting. Once upon a time, in a small village where cobblestone streets were flanked by neat, thatched cottages, the vicar and the squire were well-known figures. They had a tradition, a warm and enchanting one, that brought the villagers together on chilly autumn evenings. They would gather at the large hearth in the vicar's house, and the air would be filled with the delightful aroma of roasting apples and the sound of cheery laughter. The villagers, men and women, old and young, would all huddle together around the fire, their faces aglow in the flickering light. Apples from the squire's plentiful orchard would be skewered on sticks and roasted over the hearth. The squire, a wise old man with twinkling eyes and a hearty laugh, was fond of telling stories. He would spin the most fascinating tales, full of magic and mystery, heroes and villains, and the children would listen with rapt attention, their eyes as wide as saucers. One particular evening, after the squire had finished telling a particularly riveting tale about a knight and a dragon, the vicar declared that the apples and stories had both been delightfully delicious. Looking at the baskets still heaving with apples, he teased the squire, certain that there were dozens more tales hidden away in his mind. The squire, however, simply shook his head, claiming he had exhausted his repertoire. "But let's continue the fun by roasting some more apples," he suggested, and the crowd eagerly agreed. As the apples sizzled and popped in the fire, the room was filled with laughter and merriment. Suddenly, someone suggested a game. The owner of the apple that burned first would have to tell the next story. All eyes turned to the sizzling apples, each hoping that theirs wouldn't be the unfortunate one. As it so happened, the apple that blackened first belonged to a kind-hearted matron, who was busy tending to her lively brood of children. She was a natural storyteller, often calming her children with stories when they were upset or ill. Accepting the task with a good-natured laugh, she settled her youngest on her lap. With the room silent in anticipation, the warm light from the fire dancing on her face, she began a tale, as old as time yet as fresh as a blooming flower, leaving everyone in the room eager for her story, as another apple roasted over the fire, ready for the next storyteller. The lovely moon. Once upon a time there was a little child who did not want to go to bed. "The yellow chickens are all asleep," said his mother, as she undressed him. "I heard the old hen calling them, cluck, 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 before you had eaten your supper. But I do not want to go to sleep," said the child. "The pigeons are all asleep," said his mother, up in the pigeon house. "Coo-roo, coo-roo, good night," they said, then tucked their heads under their wings. "But I do not want to go to sleep," said the child. "The little red calf is asleep in the barn," said the mother, "and the lambs are asleep on green clover beds," and she put the child into his own white bed. It was a soft, downy bed close beside a window, but the child did not want to lie there. He tossed about under the coverlet, and the tears were beginning to run down his cheeks when, all at once, the moon looked in at the window. "There," said his mother, "the moon has come to tell you good night. See how it is smiling." The moon shone right into the child's eyes. "Good night, little child. Sleep well," it seemed to say. "Good night," said he, and he lay still on his bed and watched the moon while his mother sang, lovely moon, smiling on high, like a bright angel's face up in the sky. Baby is watching you, baby and I. Lovely moon, can the moon see the lambs?" asked the child sleepily. His eyelids were so heavy that he could scarcely keep them open, while the moon looked in at the window and his mother sang, "Tell us, oh, lovely moon, what do you see as you shine down upon me?" "I see the little lambs, I see the sheep, I see a baby child going to sleep." The moon smiled at the child and his mother, and the mother smiled at the moon. But the little child did not see them, for he was fast asleep. John's Big Adventure in the Rain. Once upon a time, In a small town filled with cobblestone streets and colorful houses, there lived a little boy named John. He was no ordinary boy. You see, John loved the rain. While other children stayed inside, warm and cozy when it rained, John could not resist the pull of the puddles. John had a pair of great big waterproof boots, as yellow as the sun itself. He would pull them on with a big grin on his face, excited for the adventures to come. The boots were magical. They could jump over the biggest puddles without a single drop of water getting in. Next, John had a great big waterproof hat, as blue as the clearest sky. He would place it on his head, covering his mop of curly hair. The hat had a secret power. It could make him invisible when he stood perfectly still under the pouring rain. John also had a great big waterproof Macintosh, bright as a rainbow after a storm. It was a special coat that kept him dry no matter how much it poured. But this was no ordinary coat. It could stretch out and turn into a rain-sheltering tent, big enough for him and all his friends. And so, armed with his special gear, John would step out into the rain, the sound of pitter-patter setting his heart racing. He would splash in the puddles, making waves that looked like tiny oceans. His boots would keep his feet dry and warm, even as they caused ripples in the water. Under the pouring rain, he would become invisible and watch as the town transformed into a sparkling wonderland, each raindrop reflecting a million colors. It was his secret world, unseen and untouched by anyone else. Whenever it poured harder, John would stretch out his Macintosh, turning it into a rainbow canopy. His friends, seeing the magical tent, would rush out of their homes, joining him in their rainwear. At the end of the day, when the rain had drained itself out and a rainbow hung high in the sky, John would pack away his special gear. With a satisfied smile on his face, he would declare, "And that, my friends, is that." The little clock in the schoolroom. Once upon a time, in a charming, bustling little schoolhouse, nestled on a hill overlooking the town, there stood a neat little clock. It wasn't grand, nor shiny, nor extravagant. In fact, the clock was quite ordinary. It had a round face, polished smooth, with numbers from 1 to 12 painted around the edges, and two little hands, one short and one long. Yet, its place in the schoolroom was anything but ordinary. From morning until the final bell rang, the clock stood proudly on the wall, ticking away. Its two little hands danced around its face all day, pointing to the hours and minutes as they came and went. It told the time for reading, writing, math, and of course, snack and playtime. As the days rolled into weeks, the children in the schoolroom began to notice something special about the little clock. It always showed the correct time, its hands ever ready to point out the hour, never lagging behind, never rushing forward. More than that, its face was always clean and bright. No dust, no grime, just a friendly gleam greeting them each day. Intrigued by the clock's consistency and cheerfulness, the children turned to their wise old teacher, Mrs. Appletree, and asked, "How does the clock keep such accurate time and stay so bright?" With a kind smile, Mrs. Appletree explained, "The clock, dear children, is like each one of us. The secret to its clean face and perfect timing is simple. It always tries to do what is right." The children blinked, their young minds buzzing with curiosity. "What do you mean?" asked little Lucy, her eyes round with wonder. Well, think of it this way, Mrs. Appletree began. The clock's face stays clean because it never gets involved in dirt or mischief. It chooses to remain high on the wall, avoiding trouble. And its hands are always ready to move at the right moment, never rushing, never dragging. It is just like doing the right thing at the right time. The children pondered her words, their faces thoughtful. Slowly, understanding dawned upon them. They realized that, like the little clock, they could keep their lives clean and bright by staying out of mischief and doing what was right. They could be ever ready to lend a helping hand, to share, to love, and to care for each other. The Little Mermaid. At the bottom of the sparkling sea, where the sunlight filters down and dances on the coral reefs, lived the Sea People. It was a beautiful world, and none more beautiful than the grand palace of the Sea King. He had been a kind and wise ruler for many years, raising his 6 lovely daughters with the help of his old mother, the Sea Queen. The youngest of the princesses, the littlest mermaid, was a curious and gentle soul. While her older sisters loved playing in the deep gardens and chasing dolphins, the littlest mermaid dreamed of the world above the sea. Her grandmother would tell her enchanting tales about the world of humans, and the little mermaid could hardly wait to see it for herself. When her 15th birthday finally arrived, it was her turn to visit the surface. Her heart raced with excitement as she rose above the waves and saw a magnificent ship sailing in the distance. Laughter and music filled the air, and as she swam closer, she spotted a handsome prince with black hair and bright eyes. The little mermaid couldn't look away. He was the most enchanting person she had ever seen. But as the night fell, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. A fierce storm broke out, and the ship was tossed by towering waves. The little mermaid watched in horror as the ship split apart and sank into the depths. Knowing humans could not survive underwater, she dived down to rescue the prince. She swam with all her strength and kept his head above the water, guiding him to the safety of the shore. There, on a sandy beach near a quiet monastery, she gently laid him down. She kissed his forehead, whispering a soft goodbye, and hid behind a large rock. Soon, some girls from the monastery found the prince and cared for him. The little mermaid watched from a distance, a little sad, but also happy that he was safe. That night, she returned to her underwater home and told her sisters about the prince. One of her sisters had heard of the prince's palace and took her to see it the next night. From then on, the little mermaid returned every evening to catch a glimpse of him, her heart filling with quiet longing. One day, feeling bold, the little mermaid visited the sea witch to ask for help. I want to walk on land, to be with the prince, she said. The sea witch cackled but agreed. I can give you legs, but in return, you must give me your voice. It will be painful to walk, but you will be able to live among humans. If you get a true love's kiss within 3 days, you can stay human and be with your prince. If you don't get a true love's kiss within 3 days, you will become a mermaid again and forever be in my service. The little mermaid hesitated, but her love for the prince gave her courage. I accept, she said. She swam to the shore and drank the potion the sea witch gave her. The transformation was painful, but when she awoke the next morning, the prince was there, Looking down at her with concern. Though she could no longer speak, he helped her stand, offering her the finest clothes and a place in his castle. Every day, the prince grew fonder of the little mermaid, but he didn't yet know she was the one who had saved him. The little mermaid and the prince spent much time together and even almost kissed, but the evil sea witch had her served. One day, the prince told her about a girl who had saved him on the beach, and how he wanted to marry her. The little mermaid's heart sank, but she remained hopeful, believing that perhaps he would come to understand that she was that girl. The sea witch was angry that the prince was falling in love with the little mermaid and decided to disguise herself as the girl that the prince thought saved him on the beach. Soon after, the prince's parents arranged for him to meet a girl from a neighboring kingdom, and the little mermaid accompanied him on the journey. When they arrived, the prince's heart lit up as he saw the girl, believing she was the one who had saved him. Not knowing that it was the wicked sea witch in disguise, the little mermaid felt her heart ache, knowing what this could mean for her. The prince fell for the sea witch's spell and forgot all about the little mermaid. The little mermaid returned to sea heartbroken, and the prince was to marry the sea witch. The night before the prince's wedding, her sisters visited her at the shore. They brought a magical gift that they had secretly taken from the sea witch, a necklace that could restore her voice. With this, you can tell the prince the truth, and he will know that you are the one he truly loves, they said. Grateful for the chance, the little mermaid put on the necklace. As the prince stood on the deck of a ship, looking out over the water before his wedding, she found her voice again. "Prince," she called softly. He turned in surprise, recognizing the voice. "It's you," he exclaimed. "You're the one who saved me. I can't believe I didn't realize it sooner." And was hearing her voice, the spell the wicked sea witch casted over the prince disappeared. With joy and relief, the little mermaid told him the full story of how she had rescued him from the storm. The prince, overjoyed, took her hands and said, "I have loved you all along. I was blind to it, but now I see clearly. Will you marry me, and we'll be together forever?" The little mermaid nodded, tears of happiness filling her eyes. They sailed back to the kingdom, where they were married with great celebration. The Sea King, the Queen, and her sisters all came to the wedding, blessing their union. And so, the little mermaid, no longer bound to the sea, lived happily ever after with her beloved prince. The two of them often returned to the shore, where she could visit her family in the ocean, and the sea and land lived in harmony ever after. Santa Claus. Every year, on the night before Christmas, Santa Claus comes. He rides in a sleigh drawn by tiny reindeer with bells on their harnesses. Tinkle, tinkle, ring the bells, and trot, go the little deer to carry Santa Claus over the world. Santa Claus dresses in fur from his head to his heels. His leggings are fur, his coat is fur, and he wears a fur cap pulled down over his ears, for the winds of the winter are icy cold. Oh, 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 sing the winds, tink, tinkle, ring the bells, and trot, go the little deer when Santa Claus rides over the world. Santa Claus's beard is as white as the snow, and his cheeks are as red as apples, and his eyes are as bright as the twinkling stars that look from the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, shine the stars. Oh, 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 sing the winds. Tink, tinkle, ring the bells, and trot, go the little deer when Santa Claus rides over the world. Santa Claus is old, old as the hills, but he is strong as a giant, and on his back he carries a pack. And the pack he has dolls and drums, and balls and tops, wagons and sleds. He sits with blue roses painted on them, and horns with red and white stripes, and all of them are for little children. As soon as the children are asleep on Christmas Eve, Santa Claus comes to fill their stockings with good things and give them beautiful gifts. He knows just what the children want, every one of them, and he laughs for joy as he rides away. H-O, H-O, laughs Santa Claus, twinkle, twinkle, shine the stars. Oh, 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 sing the winds, tink, tinkle, ring the bells, and trot, go the little deer when Santa Claus rides. The children never see him come. If he hears so much as a laugh or a whisper in the house, he stays outside till all is quiet. Once upon a time there was a little boy who did not want to go to bed on the night before Christmas. I shall sit up and see Santa Claus, he said. He hung his stocking by the mantel, and sat in his mother's big rocking chair and waited, and watched, and waited. But all that he saw was a little gray mouse. Though he stayed awake till everybody but his mother was in bed, and he could not keep his eyes open. The last thing he saw as he went to sleep was a stocking hanging just where he had put it, and there was nothing in it. But do you believe it? When he waked up next morning, it was full of goodies from tip to toe, and right in front of the fireplace was a wagon with red wheels. Santa Claus has been here, said the little boy, and he clapped his hands, for he was happy as could be. All the world is happy when Santa Claus comes. Trot, go the little deer. Tink, tinkle, ring the bells. Oh, 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 sing the winds. Twinkle, twinkle, shine the stars. And H-O, H-O, laughs Santa Claus as he rides over the world to fill the children's stockings and to bring beautiful gifts. The Little Pumpkinets. Upon a time, there was a little pumpkin growing on a vine in a field. The sun shone on him all day long, and sometimes the rain gently fell on him. The vine sent her roots deep into the ground in search of good food. The little pumpkin eagerly drank from the good sap and grew bigger and bigger, rounder and rounder, and firmer and firmer. Gradually, he became so big that he understood everything the growing things around him said because he listened eagerly. I came from the seed of a jack-o'-lantern, Mother Vine said to a neighbor. That's why I have to grow jack-o'-lanterns now. Me too, said a neighbor, but no jack-o'-lanterns for me. It's too much work. I'm just going to grow pumpkins. When the little pumpkin heard that he was supposed to be a jack-o'-lantern, he became very worried because he didn't see that he was any different from a regular pumpkin. He thought that Mother Vine really expected him to become a jack-o'-lantern, and he didn't want to disappoint her. Eventually, he became so unhappy that the sun and wind noticed it. What's wrong, little pumpkin? Why are you crying? Why don't you hold your head up and look around like you always did? Because, the little pumpkin answered sadly, I'm supposed to be a jack-o'-lantern, and I don't know how. I only know how to be a little pumpkin. Then the wind and the sun laughed until the vine shook. so all the pumpkins had to hold on tight not to be shaken off. "Oh, little pumpkin," they cried. "Why worry about what you have to do later? Just try with all your might to be a little pumpkin. And believe us, if you do your best, everything will be all right. We know a secret, a beautiful secret, and one day we will tell you." "Oh, tell me now," the little pumpkin exclaimed. But the sun and wind chuckled. "Oh no, oh no, oh no, just grow, 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 and one day you'll know." The little pumpkin felt comforted. He thought, "Maybe I can't be a jack-o'-lantern, but I can be a good little pumpkin. And I'm so well hidden that Mother Vine might not see me." He looked around and saw that all his brothers and sisters were just little pumpkins too. "Oh, brothers and sisters," he cried, "are we all going to disappoint Mother Vine? Will none of us become a jack-o'-lantern?" Then all his little brothers and sisters laughed and said, "What do we care about being a jack-o'-lantern? The only thing we care about is good sap and growing and growing." Finally, the cold weather came, and all the little pumpkins were now big and beautiful and golden yellow. The biggest and yellowest of all was a little pumpkin who had tried so hard all summer to grow into a jack-o'-lantern. He couldn't believe that Mother Vine still didn't see him, because he had grown so big that everyone who saw him was amazed. But Mother Vine didn't seem disappointed at all. She just kept feeding her pumpkin children well. Finally, on a frosty morning, a crowd of children came to the field. "The pumpkins are ready," they cried. "The pumpkins are ready, and we're going to find the biggest and yellowest and nicest pumpkin to make a jack-o'-lantern for the feast. All the grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles will see it, and we'll eat the pies made from it." They looked around, pushing the plants aside to search better. Suddenly, they saw the little pumpkin. "Oh," they exclaimed, "what a great jack-o'-lantern! So big and sturdy and round and yellow. This will be the jack-o'-lantern for our feast. It's so big that there's enough pie for everyone." Then they picked the pumpkin and carried it to the barn. Father cut off the top of the pumpkin, lifted it carefully, and scooped out the inside. The children carried the pumpkin to Mother in the kitchen. Then Father made eyes and a nose and a mouth and placed a big candle inside. "Oh, look at what a beautiful jack-o'-lantern!" they exclaimed. The little pumpkin was put in the barn. "Finally, I'm a jack-o'-lantern," he said. After a while, it became dark, and Father came and carried the pumpkin into the house, lit the candle, and placed it right in the middle of the table. All the grandmothers and grandfathers and aunts and uncles shouted, "Oh, what a beautiful, big, round, yellow jack-o'-lantern." Then the little pumpkin was happy because he knew that Mother Vine would be proud of him, and he shone and shone until the candle burned out completely. King Bubbles lived in a palace on top of a mountain. And do you know what he loved most? Blowing bubbles. He had a special bubble blowing pipe for this purpose that made bubbles that never broke. At first, he only blew bubbles inside the palace, but it soon became overcrowded. So he opened the windows and doors and blew the bubbles out. They landed on the trees and among the flowers, and soon the garden was also overcrowded. But King Bubbles kept blowing and blowing. He blew the bubbles down the mountain into the valley, and they reached the city at the foot of the mountain. At first his subjects thought the bubbles were beautiful, but soon there were far too many and everyone lived in a big haze. There really had to be a solution because this could not continue. No one could see anything anymore. Everyone bumped into each other and people could no longer hear each other properly. And worst of all, some people only lived in their own bubble and had no contact with other people at all. A meeting was called, and after long deliberation, it was decided that it would be better if the king would blow the bubbles upwards rather than downwards. A few subjects went to the palace to consult with the king. King Bubbles had just made a giant bubble and planned to blow it down. But when he heard the request, he thought deeply and finally turned his bubble pipe upwards and blew his giant bubble towards the clouds. This was a beautiful sight, and the king became so excited that he wanted nothing more than to blow his bubbles into the sky. His subjects were happy again. They could see each other again. They no longer bumped into each other. They heard each other and they lived together again, instead of alone in their own bubble. And if you look closely, on some days, in the sky, you can see the beautiful colors of the bubbles that King Bubbles blows up. The Tooth Fairy. Once upon a time, there was a magical fairy who lived in a beautiful forest. This fairy was known as the Tooth Fairy, and she can take on many different forms. Some children say that she looks like a tiny, delicate fairy with wings and a sparkling crown. Others believe that she is a kind and gentle spirit who glows with a soft, white light. The Tooth Fairy is responsible for collecting teeth from children all around the world. So when a child loses a tooth, they would place it under their pillow before they went to bed. The Tooth Fairy would then come and take the tooth, leaving a special surprise in its place. Some children would wake up to find a shiny new coin, while others might discover a small trinket or toy. The Tooth Fairy loves children, and she is always happy to help them when they lose a tooth. She knows that losing a tooth is a special moment, and she wants to make it as magical as possible. So, if you ever lose a tooth, be sure to put it under your pillow at night. The Tooth Fairy may just come and visit you while you're asleep. The gingerbread boy and girl old Mammy Cook it all sat in a rocking chair by the fire, singing, "I'll take a nap now, just for fun. My cakes and cookies are all done." "How about me?" whispered the gingerbread boy. "How about me?" whispered the gingerbread girl. Old Mammy Cook it all was nid nodding, fast asleep. The gingerbread boy began to fan himself with a piece of blotting paper, and the gingerbread girl began to fan herself with a postage stamp. They had just come out of the hot oven. "Oh, Daddy, eat it all, is not your friend or mine at all," said the gingerbread girl. "Here comes Oh, Daddy, eat it all. I hear his king thump down the hall," said the gingerbread boy. Tap, 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 sounded the cane, and Oh, Daddy Eat It All peeped into the kitchen and saw Mammy Cook it all. He took another chair by the fire, and soon he was nid nodding, fast asleep. The gingerbread boy and girl said, "The kitchen is a place for fun, and with a broom, our work's begun." The gingerbread girl took a broom and swept the floor, and the gingerbread boy took a cloth and dusted the tables and chairs. They had just finished when old Dog Towser came in and opened his mouth. "My, What a big mouth he had! He was just going to snap off the gingerbread girl's head and the gingerbread boy's feet when old Mammy Cook it all woke up, and old Daddy Eat it all woke up, crying, "Oh, Dog Towser, don't snap in fun. Gingerbread girl and boy, you run." The dog laid his ears back and closed his mouth, and the gingerbread boy and girl jumped up in the pan on the table. Old Daddy Eat It All said, "You may have often heard it said, 'How well I do like gingerbread.'" Old Mammy Cook It All gave him a cake of gingerbread and said, as she looked at her clean kitchen, "I hope that nothing will ever destroy me, gingerbread girl and gingerbread boy." Old Dog Towser said nothing, but his eyes grew as big as saucers. Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time there was a sweet little girl. Everyone loved her, most of all her grandmother. So one day she gave her a red velvet hat. The girl always wore the hat, and since then she has been called Little Red Riding Hood. One day her grandmother was ill, so Little Red Riding Hood went to bring her wine and biscuits. That would surely make her feel better. Her mother told her not to go off the path and to be careful. She also had to be polite and say goodbye to grandmother. Little Red Riding Hood promised to do so and went on her way. Grandmother lived deep in the forest, more than half an hour's walk from the village. In the forest, Little Red Riding Hood encountered the wolf. She did not know he was dangerous, so she was not afraid at all. "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood," the wolf said. "I'm going to bring Grandma wine and biscuits because she is sick," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Where does your grandmother live?" the wolf then asked. "Less than half an hour further into the forest, in the cottage under the 3 big oaks," said Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf, meanwhile, was thinking of something else entirely. That Little Red Riding Hood was a nice tender morsel and would probably taste even better than the tough grandmother. If he was smart, he could eat them both. So the wolf came along and said, "Look at these beautiful flowers. Don't you want to look around for a bit?" Little Red Riding Hood wanted to pick a beautiful bouquet for grandmother. It was still early, so she had plenty of time. And so she left the path and wandered deeper and deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, the wolf walked straight to grandmother's house and knocked on the door. "Who is there?" Little Red Riding Hood with wine and biscuits opened up. "Come in." "I can't get up," said grandmother. When the wolf was inside, he jumped onto the bed and ate grandmother in one go. Then he put on her nightgown, put on her nightcap, and got into bed with the curtains closed. When Little Red Riding Hood arrived at the cottage with her arms full of flowers, she was surprised to find the door open. Inside, everything seemed so strange. She became afraid but did not know why. "Good morning," Little Red Riding Hood said, but no one answered. Then she opened the curtains. In the bed lay grandmother, but she looked so strange with her sleeping cap over her face. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have. The better to hear you with, my child," was the reply. "But grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "The better to see you with, my dear." "But grandmother, what large hands you have, the better to hug you with." "Oh, but grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have, the better to eat you with." The wolf jumped out of bed and swallowed up Little Red Riding Hood. With his belly so full, He slept soundly and snored like a king. A hunter came by. He thought, "That old woman is snoring very loudly. I'll go and have a look." He saw the wolf and said, "So here you are, you old sinner. I've been looking for you for so long." He wanted to shoot the wolf with his rifle but suddenly realized that the wolf might have eaten grandmother. Who knows? He might be able to save her. He cut open the belly of the sleeping wolf with a pair of scissors and immediately saw a red cap. The girl jumped out and cried. "I was so afraid in the wolf's belly. It was so dark there." And after that the aged grandmother came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Then the hunter filled the wolf's belly with stones. When the wolf woke up, he wanted to run away, but the stones stopped him. He fell to the ground and never woke up again. The hunter, grandmother, and Little Red Riding Hood were happy. The hunter took the wolf's fur home. Grandmother drank the wine, ate all the biscuits, and soon felt a lot better. And Little Red Riding Hood said to herself, "I will never leave the forest path again for as long as I live, and I will always live." Hush! Little baby nursery rhyme. Hush! Little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird. If that mockingbird don't sing, Mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring. If that diamond ring turns brass, Mama's gonna buy you a looking glass. If that looking glass gets broke, Mama's gonna buy you a billy goat. If that billy goat don't pull, Mama's gonna buy you a cart and bull. If that cart and bull turn over, Mama's gonna buy you a dog named Rover. If that dog named Rover don't bark, Mama's gonna buy you a horse and cart. If that horse and cart fall down, you'll still be the sweetest little baby in town. The Thankful Mouse and Getty the Catons. Upon a Thanksgiving morning, there was a famished feline named Getty. She had sharp claws, piercing green eyes, and a belly rumbling louder than thunder. She was lounging lazily on her cozy cushion when she spotted a delightful sight. Over by the cornfield, there was a tiny mouse nibbling on an ear of corn. His fur was as brown as freshly baked bread, his eyes as bright as glittering stars. He was not just any mouse. He was Thankful, the most grateful mouse in the whole of Meadowville. "If I made a meal of that grateful little mouse," thought Getty with a devilish smirk, "how pleased he would be. He would have feasted himself only to become a feast for me. He would be thanking the corn for its deliciousness, and then I'd be thanking him for his." She chuckled at her thoughts, her purring echoing through the morning air. His gratefulness for the corn, and then my gratefulness for him. Oh, how delightfully sad. Thus plotted Getty the cunning cat on that bright Thanksgiving day. But little did she know, her plan was not as secret as she thought. The little mouse, Thankful, had big ears and an even bigger heart. Thankful had overheard the crafty cat's plan. His eyes grew wide, and his heart beat faster. But instead of running away scared, Thankful hatched a plan. He was known for his gratitude, but few knew of his wit. "Perhaps I can teach Getty a lesson about true thankfulness," thought Thankful. With a swift twitch of his whiskers, he sprang into action. He picked the biggest, juiciest ear of corn he could find, and with all his strength, he pushed it towards Getty. The golden kernels glinted in the sun as it rolled towards the cat. Getty was taken aback. What's this? A gift from my meal to be? Not a gift, Getty, but a lesson, squeaked Thankful, standing bravely. True thankfulness isn't about being pleased to eat another. It's about sharing what we have with those who have less. This corn, Getty, is for you. May it fill your belly and warm your heart. Getty was stunned. Her green eyes softened, and she looked at the tiny mouse in a new light. She tasted the juicy corn, and it was indeed delicious. But what filled her more was a warmth spreading in her heart. So that Thanksgiving Day, the hungry cat learned the true meaning of gratitude. And Thankful the mouse became the hero of Meadowville. From then on, the little mouse wasn't merely known for his gratitude, but also for his wisdom and courage. And Getty, well, she became the most thankful cat you would ever meet. The Halloween Witches. Once upon a time, in a land where autumn painted the leaves in hues of red, yellow, and orange, a group of special friends gathered every year on All Hallows Eve. They were not ordinary friends but charming, delightful witches who loved to frolic and play. On this special night, the witches dressed up in their finest beautiful white dresses, tall pointed hats of brilliant scarlet, and cloaks that swished with every movement. And let's not forget their brooms, not used for cleaning, but for flying around under the moonlit sky. As the sun set and the moon took its place in the star-speckled sky, the witches began to gather. Each witch brought her broomstick, treating it as a beloved pet. One by one, they stabled their broomsticks at the back, patting them affectionately before stepping to the front and greeting their friends with a graceful bow. Now, are we all ready for our magical mischief? Asked the oldest witch, her eyes twinkling with excitement. All ready, chorused the rest, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the moon. And so began their playful antics. They danced and swirled in the moonlight, their voices weaving a song of mirth and magic. Beware, young man, now escape while you can, they sang, their laughter echoing through the quiet night. As they danced, their cloaks billowed around them, and their brooms waved high in the air. They teased and chased each other, their laughter ringing through the night, adding to the enchantment of All Hallows Eve. One of the witches, the youngest, looked at her friends and giggled. Just imagine if someone actually took our warnings seriously. Oh, wouldn't that be a sight? Another witch cackled, her eyes glinting with mirth. Yet, in their hearts, they were as gentle as the morning dew. Their warnings meant only in good fun and not to scare. As the night drew closer to the dawn, a call rang out among the witches. There's one. Girls, immediately, an excited chorus echoed. Oh, catch him, and with that, they seized their brooms and flew off into the night, their silhouettes disappearing into the early morning mist. Each All Hallows Eve, they returned, the playful witches spreading joy and a magical charm that filled the air. And if, dear children, you ever find yourself on an All Hallows Eve with the sight of these charming witches, remember their playful warnings, but don't forget to enjoy the magic of the night. For in every corner of the world, magic exists, sometimes where we least expect it. Peter Pan. is a hero in all the stories that the girl Wendy Darling tells her brothers Michael and John. The boys love listening to their older sister's stories. She tells them so enthusiastically and vividly that it almost seems as if Peter Pan really exists. One evening, Mr. and Mrs. Darling go to a party. Nana, the dog, has to look after the children. Wendy's father hears her tell the brothers the adventures of Peter Pan for the umpteenth time. Oh dear, isn't it about time your fantasy gave way to a little more maturity? He sighs as he puts the children to bed. What Wendy and the boys don't know is that Peter Pan secretly listens to the adventures every night by the window. This evening, Peter has come to the house to look for his shadow. He brought Tinker Bell the fairy to help him with this. When Wendy suddenly wakes up, Peter asks her if she can attach his shadow to him. I think you are fantastic at telling about my adventures, says Peter. Thanks, but my dad thinks it's time to act like an adult. Wendy replies, you should never want to grow up, says Peter. Come with me to my island. It's called Neverland. I teach you to fly. You will have a great time there. You can continue to tell your stories to the 6 children who also came with me to Neverland. I call them the Lost Boys. Only if my brothers can come along, then I will go with you. Wendy concludes. No sooner said than done. Peter teaches the 3 children to fly with the help of some fairy dust, and so they leave London for Neverland. In Neverland, the children experience many adventures. One day, they are shot at by a vicious pirate. It is Captain Hook who once lost a hand in a fight with Peter Pan. He has come to take revenge. Peter asks Tinker Bell to take the children to a safe hiding place. Tinker Bell has become very jealous in the meantime now that Peter gives much more time and attention to Wendy. When Peter and Wendy are not there, she tries to turn the Lost Boys and the brothers against Wendy. When Peter finds out, Tinker Bell is not allowed to show herself in Neverland for a week. Immediately afterwards, the children plunge into a new adventure. The Lost Boys and the brothers are captured by Indians. The chief thinks that the boys have kidnapped his daughter Tiger Lily. Fortunately, Peter has seen that Captain Hook is the one who kidnapped Tiger Lily. He manages to save her and brings her back to her father. The chief is so happy that he organizes a great big party. Everyone is enjoying themselves, but Wendy begins to feel homesick. She tells her 2 brothers and the Lost Boys about the house in London. How our parents will miss us, she says sadly. How I wish I could go home. Let's all go to our home in London. Our parents are so sweet. They will definitely want to adopt the Lost Boys. Peter Pan doesn't like it. He is deeply disappointed and did not expect that Wendy would choose a life that could only lead to adulthood. In the meantime, Captain Hook has caught Tinker Bell. He manages to get her to give him the address of Peter Pan and the children's hideout. Hook then locks Tinker Bell and bursts into the hideout where he captures the children on his ship. He leaves Peter Pan behind with a package containing a bomb. Tinker Bell has managed to escape in the meantime and manages to intercept the package just in time and thus saves Peter's life. He hurries to the pirate ship to save the children from death. Hook wants them all thrown ashore. Of course, Peter won't let that happen, and in a fight Captain Hook himself falls off the ship, where he is eaten by a crocodile. The children sail on with the ship, and with the help of a lot of fairy dust, The children fly back to London with the ship. At home they tell the whole story. The children are all lovingly received and adopted. The father looks into the sky for a moment and sees the tail of the ship disappearing high into the sky. It is not strange to him, because he recognizes it from his own childhood. The fall of the leaf. You know that in autumn nearly all the leaves fall from the trees. To be sure, a few trees such as the pines and hemlocks and some plants such as the laurel and wintergreen and partridge vine do hold fast their leaves all winter. But these are so few as compared with the many plants which lose their leaves, that they hardly count. Perhaps you never stopped to wonder why most plants get rid of their leaves before winter comes on, but you feel pretty sure now that there is some good reason for a habit that is adopted by nearly all the plants that live in this part of the country. When we were talking about the way in which leaves defend themselves from different dangers, we found that evergreen leaves, the leaves which hold fast to the tree and keep fresh all winter, manage to keep their water safe inside their cells by wearing a very thick skin, and by not having too many little leaf mouths. For when a leaf has a thin skin and a great many mouths, its water leaks away very quickly, and if many such leaves should remain upon a plant into the winter, might it not happen that they would let off all its water at a time when its roots could not find any more in the frozen ground? And thus might not the leaves kill the plant by draining it quite dry? So you can see why it is well for most plants to shed their leaves before winter comes on and the roots drinking water is turned into ice. But when a plant is about to shed its leaves, it takes care not to waste the precious food which they hold. This food it draws back into its stem and roots, laying it away in safe places beneath the buds which are to burst another year. It is this action on the part of the plant which changes the color of the leaves every fall. That material which makes them green is broken up, and part of it is taken away. That which is left is usually yellow or brown or reddish, and gives the leaves the beautiful colors we see in our October woods. So whenever you see the woods changing color, losing their fresh green and turning red and yellow, you can be sure that the trees have begun to prepare for winter. You know that they are stowing away their food in warmer, safer places than can be supplied by the delicate leaves. And when all the food has been drawn out of the leaves and packed away in the right spots, then the plant finishes a piece of work it began some time before. This piece of work is the building up of a row of little cells just where the leaf stalk joins a stem or branch. When this row is complete, it acts almost like a knife, loosening the stalk from the stem. Then the leaf's life work is over, and with the first breeze, the empty shell, which is all that is left, breaks away from the parent plant and drifts earthward. The Little Pumpkin. Once upon a time, there was a little pumpkin growing on a vine in a field. The sun shone on him all day long, and sometimes the rain gently fell on him. The vine sent her roots deep into the ground in search of good food. The little pumpkin eagerly drank from the good sap and grew bigger and bigger, rounder and rounder, and firmer and firmer. Gradually, he became so big that he understood everything the growing things around him said because he listened eagerly. I came from the seed of a jack-o'-lantern, Mother Vine said to a neighbor. That's why I have to grow jack-o'-lanterns now. Me too, said a neighbor. But no jack-o'-lanterns for me. It's too much work. I'm just going to grow pumpkins. When the little pumpkin heard that he was supposed to be a jack-o'-lantern, he became very worried because he didn't see that he was any different from a regular pumpkin. He thought that Mother Vine really expected him to become a jack-o'-lantern, and he didn't want to disappoint her. Eventually, he became so unhappy that the sun and wind noticed it. What's wrong, little pumpkin? Why are you crying? Why don't you hold your head up and look around like you always did? Because, the little pumpkin answered sadly, I'm supposed to be a jack-o'-lantern, and I don't know how. I only know how to be a little pumpkin. Then the wind and the sun laughed until the vine shook. So all the pumpkins had to hold on tight not to be shaken off. Oh, little pumpkin, they cried. Why worry about what you have to do later? Just try with all your might to be a little pumpkin. And believe us, if you do your best, everything will be all right. We know a secret, a beautiful secret, and one day we will tell you. Oh, tell me now, the little pumpkin exclaimed. But the sun and wind chuckled. Oh no, oh no, oh no, just grow, 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 and one day you'll know. The little pumpkin felt comforted. He thought, maybe I can't be a jack-o'-lantern, but I can be a good little pumpkin. And I'm so well hidden that Mother Vine might not see me. He looked around and saw that all his brothers and sisters were just little pumpkins too. Oh, brothers and sisters, he cried, are we all going to disappoint Mother Vine? Will none of us become a jack-o'-lantern? Then all his little brothers and sisters laughed and said, what do we care about being a jack-o'-lantern? The only thing we care about is good sap and growing and growing. Finally, the cold weather came, and all the little pumpkins were now big and beautiful and golden yellow. The biggest and yellowest of all was a little pumpkin who had tried so hard all summer to grow into a jack-o'-lantern. He couldn't believe that Mother Vine still didn't see him, because he had grown so big that everyone who saw him was amazed. But Mother Vine didn't seem disappointed at all. She just kept feeding her pumpkin children well. Finally, on a frosty morning, a crowd of children came to the field. The pumpkins are ready, they cried. The pumpkins are ready, and we're going to find the biggest and yellowest and nicest pumpkin to make a jack-o'-lantern for the Thanksgiving feast. All the grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles will see it, and we'll eat the pies made from it. They looked around, pushing the plants aside to search better. Suddenly, they saw the little pumpkin. Oh, they exclaimed. What a great jack-o'-lantern! So big and sturdy and round and yellow. This will be the jack-o'-lantern for our Thanksgiving feast. It's so big that there's enough pie for everyone. Then they picked the pumpkin and carried it to the barn. Father cut off the top of the pumpkin, lifted it carefully, and scooped out the inside. The children carried the pumpkin to Mother in the kitchen. Then Father made eyes and a nose and a mouth and placed a big candle inside. Oh, look at what a beautiful jack-o'-lantern! They exclaimed. The little pumpkin was put in the barn. Finally, I'm a jack-o'-lantern, he said. After a while, it became dark, and Father came and carried the pumpkin into the house, lit the candle, and placed it right in the middle of the table. All the grandmothers and grandfathers and aunts and uncles shouted, Oh, What a beautiful, big, round, yellow jack-o'-lantern. Then the little pumpkin was happy because he knew that Mother Vine would be proud of him. And he shone and shone until the candle burned out completely. Why the bananas belong to the monkey? Perhaps you do not know it, but the monkeys think that all the bananas belong to them. When Brazilian children eat bananas, they say, "I am a monkey." I once knew a little boy in Brazil who was very, very fond of bananas. He always said, "I am very much a monkey." If you are fond of bananas, the Brazilian children would tell you that you are a monkey, too. This is the story they tell to show us how it all came about. Once upon a time when the world had just been made and there was only one kind of banana, but very many kinds of monkeys. There was a little old woman who had a big garden full of banana trees. It was very difficult for the old woman to gather the bananas herself, so she made a bargain with the largest monkey. She told him that if he would gather the bunches of bananas for her, she would give him half of them. The monkey gathered the bananas. When he took his half, he gave the little old woman the bananas which grow at the bottom of the bunch and are small and wrinkled. The nice big fat ones he kept for himself and carried them home to let them ripen in the dark. The little old woman was very angry. She lay awake all night trying to think of some way by which she could get even with the monkey. At last, she thought of a trick. The next morning she made an image of wax which looked just like a little boy. Then she placed a large flat basket on the top of the image's head, and in the basket she placed the best ripe bananas she could find. They certainly looked very tempting. After a little while, the biggest monkey passed that way. He saw the image of wax and thought that it was a boy carrying bananas. He had often pushed over these boys, upset their baskets, and then had run away with the bananas. This morning he was feeling very good-natured, so he thought that he would first try asking politely for the bananas. "Oh, hello," he said to him. "Please give me a banana." The image of wax answered never a word. Again the monkey said, this time in a little louder voice, "Oh, hello. Please give me a banana. Just one little, ripe little, sweet little banana." The image of wax answered never a word. Then the monkey called out in his loudest voice, "Oh, hello. If you don't give me a banana, I'll give you such a push that it will upset all of your bananas." The image of wax was silent. The monkey ran toward the image of wax and struck it hard with his hand. His hand remained firmly embedded in the wax. "Oh, let go my hand!" The monkey called out. "Let go my hand and give me a banana, or else I'll give you a hard blow with my other hand." The image of wax did not let go. The monkey gave the image a hard blow with his other hand. The other hand remained firmly embedded in the wax. Then the monkey called out, "Oh, let go my two hands! Let go my two hands and give me a banana, or else I will give you a kick with my foot." The image of wax did not let go. The monkey gave the image a kick with his foot, and his foot remained stuck fast in the wax. "Oh!" the monkey cried. "Let go my foot! Let go my two hands and my foot and give me a banana, or else I'll give you a kick with my other foot." The image of wax did not let go. Then the monkey, who was now very angry, gave the image of wax a kick with his foot, and his foot remained stuck fast in the wax. The monkey shouted, "Oh, let go my foot! Let go my 2 feet and my 2 hands and give me a banana or else I'll give you a push with my body. The image of wax did not let go. The monkey gave the image of wax a push with his body. His body remained caught fast in the wax. Oh! The monkey shouted, "Let go my body! Let go my body and my 2 feet and my 2 hands or I'll call all the other monkeys to help me." The image of wax did not let go. Then the monkey made such an uproar with his cries and shouts that very soon monkeys came running from all directions. There were big monkeys and little monkeys and middle-sized monkeys. A whole army of monkeys had come to the aid of the biggest monkey. It was the very littlest monkey who thought of a plan to help the biggest monkey out of his plight. The monkeys were to climb up into the biggest tree and pile themselves one on top of another until they made a pyramid of monkeys. The monkey with the very loudest voice of all was to be on top, and he was to shout his very loudest to the sun and ask the sun to come and help the biggest monkey out of his dreadful difficulty. This is what all the big-sized, little-sized, middle-sized monkeys did. The monkey with the loudest voice on top of the pyramid made the sun hear. The sun came at once. The sun poured his hottest rays down upon the wax. After a while the wax began to melt. The monkey was at last able to pull out one of his hands. The sun poured down more of his hottest rays, and soon the monkey was able to pull out his 2 hands. Then he could pull out 1 foot, then another, and in a little while his body too. At last he was free. When the little old woman saw what had happened, she was very much discouraged about raising bananas. She decided to move to another part of the world where she raised cabbages instead of bananas. The monkeys were left in possession of the big garden full of banana trees. From that day to this, the monkeys think that they own all the bananas. The little boy and his puppy. Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by lush, green hills and rich, fertile lands, there lived a curious little boy named Ben. His world was full of intriguing people, wonderful creatures, and exciting adventures. One sunny morning, as he walked along the warm path towards the village, he crossed paths with Mr. Brown, a kindly old man known for his warm smile and delicious loaves of bread. Mr. Brown was on his way to the village to pick up ingredients for his famous bread. Seeing Ben, he invited him to join him on his journey, but Ben politely declined. No, not I, wanting to see what else the day had in store for him. Further down the path, he encountered a majestic horse, its coat shining under the morning sun. The horse was en route to the village to fetch hay for its afternoon meal. Seeing Ben's bright eyes, the horse extended an invitation to join him. Yet again, Ben replied, No, not I. As Ben continued on his way, he met Mrs. Green, a kindly woman from his village, known for her sweet laughter and tasty barley soup. Mrs. Green was also heading to the village to get barley for her soup. She offered to let Ben accompany her, but once again, he gently refused, repeating, No, not I. Ben's journey continued, and soon he stumbled upon a family of rabbits, their brown fur gleaming in the sunlight. They were hopping their way to the village to gather oats for their supper. Seeing Ben's curiosity, the rabbits invited him to join them, but he softly declined. No, not I, though he had rejected many offers. Ben was delighted by his encounters. However, nothing prepared him for the joy he felt when he met a playful puppy on his way. The puppy, with its tail wagging and eyes gleaming with mirth, was heading up into the hills for a day of frolicking and play. Seeing Ben's friendliness, the puppy asked if he would like to join him. This time, Ben's face lit up, and was a heart full of anticipation. He exclaimed, "I'll come with you, puppy," said I, and so, Ben and the puppy spent the day rolling and playing in the hills, creating a bond that would last a lifetime. From that day forward, they were the best of friends, and no matter who Ben met on his walks, no invitation was ever as exciting as that of his dear puppy friend. The Boy and His Dog. Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by lush green meadows, there lived a young boy named George and his loyal dog Rover. Every summer evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, George and Rover set off on an important mission to find their cows and bring them safely home. The pasture where the cows grazed each day was vast and vibrant, with sweet, fine grass that stretched as far as the eye could see. A gentle brook wound its way through the meadow, providing the cows with cool, refreshing water to drink. After quenching their thirst, the cows would often lie down among the colorful flowers that grew along the water's edge. When the sun reached its peak in the sky, the cows would seek refuge beneath the leafy branches of the trees that dotted the pasture. There, they would rest and enjoy the shade, away from the scorching heat. They truly were a contented herd of cows. On some evenings, George would find himself exhausted after searching for the cows, only to discover them resting amongst the tall oaks, a considerable distance away from the cottage. In moments like these, he would call upon his trusted companion, Rover, to help him round up the cows. Rover, ever eager to assist, would bound away from George and quickly locate the cows. With gentle guidance and skill, he would lead them from their resting place and back towards the cottage, ensuring they didn't stop or wander off course until they were safely by the cottage door. Rover was not only helpful when it came to herding cows, he was also a faithful and loving friend to George. They shared a strong bond, and it was no surprise that George treated Rover with great kindness and love. Together, George and Rover spent their days caring for the cows, enjoying the beauty of their pastoral paradise. Their friendship and teamwork were a testament to the power of loyalty and the unbreakable bond between a boy and his dog. The Bee and the Child. Once upon a time, in a beautiful garden filled with colorful flowers, there lived a curious little girl named Lucy. One sunny day, she noticed a pretty bee buzzing around, flying from flower to flower. The bee seemed to be working very hard, collecting nectar all day long without stopping to rest. Lucy wondered why the bee was so busy, so she decided to ask, "Pretty bee, can you tell me why you fly from flower to flower all day, collecting nectar and never stopping to play?" The bee, delighted by the little girl's curiosity, decided to share its wisdom with her. "Little child, I'll tell you why I visit each flower nearby. Let my story be a guide as you grow and learn beside. You see, summer flowers won't last long. Winter comes and they'll be gone. The sunniest days will fade away, and even the brightest sun must set one day. Emily listened carefully to the bee's words and nodded thoughtfully. So, you're saying I should enjoy the beauty around me while it lasts? Yes, little one, the bee replied. And there's more to learn, indeed. Let your youth be filled with seeds of knowledge, love, and good deeds. When winter's age approaches near, you'll find your harvest rich and clear. The little girl pondered the bee's message, understanding that her childhood was like the summer's flowers, and she should use this time to learn and grow. When she grew older, like the winter's arrival, she would carry the lessons and memories of her youth with her. And so, Emily continued to dance through the garden, cherishing every moment and every flower. As the days went by, she learned from the world around her and planted seeds of kindness, knowledge, and love. As she grew older, her heart blossomed with the wisdom the bee had shared, and she carried a bountiful harvest of joy and warmth that lasted her entire life. The Three Little Pigs. Once upon a time, an old mother pig had 3 piglets. Unfortunately, she didn't have enough food to keep them, so she sent them out to seek their own luck. When the first pig went out, he met a man with a bundle of straw. The pig said, "Sir, please give me the straw so I can build a house." The man gave him the straw, and the pig built a house out of straw. Soon after, a big bad wolf passed by. He knocked on the door and said, "Hey, little pig, let me in." The pig replied, "No, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. Then I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in," said the wolf. And so he did. He huffed and he puffed, and he blew the door down. The little pig quickly ran away to his brother. His brother, the second pig, had met a man with a bundle of sticks. The pig said, "Sir, please give me the sticks so I can build a house." The man gave him the sticks, and the pig built a house out of sticks. He was sitting in his house feeling proud when he heard a knock on the door. It was his little brother. "The wolf blew my house down. Please, can I stay here?" "Of course. My house is made of sticks. It's safe for sure," his brother said. Then the big bad wolf came by the house made of sticks and said, "Hey, little pig, let me in." "No, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin," replied the pig. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in," said the wolf. And so he did. He huffed and he puffed, and he blew the door down. The 2 pigs quickly ran away to their other brother. The third pig had met a man with a load of bricks. The pig said, "Please, sir, give me those bricks so I can build a house." The man gave him the bricks, and the pig built a house out of bricks. He was sitting in his house when he heard a knock on the door. It were his brothers. "The wolf has blown our houses down. Please, can we stay here?" "Of course. My house is made of brick. It's safe for sure," the brothers said. "But the wolf will surely come around here. Let's make a plan to make sure he never bothers us again." So the 3 little pigs came up with a plan. And just like the pig predicted, the wolf came to his house. The big bad wolf came to the house made of bricks and said, "Hey, "Little pig, let me in." "No, no, not by the hair on my chinny chin chin," replied the pig. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in," said the wolf. So the wolf huffed and he puffed and he huffed and he puffed and he huffed and he puffed. But he couldn't blow the door down. He soon realized he couldn't open the door by huffing and puffing. Then, of course, the wolf became angry and decided that he would come after the pigs through the chimney. But the three little pigs knew what he was planning to do, and they had hung a water kettle over the fire. And just as the wolf came down the chimney, he took the lid off the kettle. The hot steam reached the big bad wolf, and with a big howl the wolf shot up. "Ouch! Ouch! Ouch! Oh, you pigs! I will get you someday." And the wolf ran away as fast as he could. And after that, the big bad wolf never came back again. He was too scared of the three smart little pigs. And the pigs, they lived happily ever after, together in the house made of bricks.